So when I bring CAD into Omniverse, I've noticed that there's like a blue or an orange arrow next to the prim. And I really wasn't sure what those were. I mean, I knew they were references, but I didn't know a lot about how they worked. And so I've dug into that and I wanted to share just a little bit about how those things work. So if I go to my content, I have a scene, just a blank scene open. If I go to my content here, if I go to RC, let's see right here. If I go to an existing USD file of a CAD part and I drag it in, let's see what happens. Here you can see it has a blue arrow. Okay, now let's just import CAD directly from a CAD file. Go to File, Import. Here's some CAD. Sure, this servo looks great. And here you can see it has an orange arrow. So you can see when I drag things in from my the content or the environment tabs, they have this blue arrow. When I import, it has this orange arrow. So what do those mean? And it turns out there are two different kinds of reference. An orange arrow means it's a standard reference. And let's see here. If you look at it and look at its properties, you'll see the reference right here. Here's its path. You can choose which checkpoint you want for that reference right here. And that's all there is to it. The blue ones are very similar. Let's select this one. Here you can see it's a payload. And here you can see the payload. It has that same, it has an asset path. You can pick a checkpoint. The difference is this checkbox right here. And what you can do with the payload is you can uncheck it and it will unload it. And so if you have to bring in a whole bunch of references, you might want to use payloads so that you don't have to load the entire scene every time. You can just load the references you want. Let's go ahead and make one of each by hand just to make sure it's crystal clear how these work. I'll delete these first. Goodbye. It turns out that if I right click and select add, you can select add reference or add payload. It will actually add that underneath this prim. So I think it's best to go ahead and create. You can create a scope or a transform. I think transforms make a lot of sense because you might want to move that reference or payload a little bit later. So we'll go once we have a prim in there, we'll go to right click on it and say add reference. Let's see. Sure. So add this one. Then we've added that as a reference. And we can right click, add a new transform, create transform, add a payload. We'll add the same thing as a payload. And here you can see the only difference is this checkbox. See servo USD, is it a relative path? Yeah, it's the same as far as I can see. So there you go. That's a reference versus a payload.